All right, rapid reaction to the final game of another disastrous season. Frankie from Flatbush here, FSPN, and we're talking about the Jets. Bills 35, Jets 8. No bueno. No bueno, but after a certain period of time, the tank was on, and Brady Cook did a good job as the tank commander, making sure we didn't win when we shouldn't have. At least we didn't screw up the tank this year. Boy, if the Raiders could have beat the Gigantes, oh boy. But they didn't. So the top of the draft, it seems like it's locked in. I don't think anything else can change. Looks like Vegas they might win, they might lose, but it doesn't matter because Las Vegas Raiders, Shady Tom Brady, Mark Davis with a little boy bowl haircut is going to have the first pick in the NFL Draft 2026 taking place in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. But your New York Jets will have the second overall pick. And so, now with this locked in, you got to hope and you got to pray that Oregon plays well, perhaps even beats Indiana. You got Mendoza versus Moore right there. Hopefully Dante Moore outduels him. They win, go on, play again, and he plays well again, and then they convince him, listen, Dante, you got to go into the draft. Because, yes, you can make a lot of nil money in coming back to Oregon, but you're going to be, one of these teams is going to take you. Top two, Vegas, Jets. You're not going to, how is Dante Moore going to do better than that next year when you got Lenoris Sellers and CJ Carr and Julian Sayin and Arch Manning and a bunch of other people coming out? That's what we got to hope. He does well, wins against Indiana, and then moves on to the championship, does well there, and then decides, I'm coming into the draft. And then it's a 2-quarterback draft, and then we're sitting pretty with one of the first 2 picks. If he doesn't, let's hope we can convince Vegas to trade with us. But otherwise, we will make other plans with free agents. Speaking of free agents, as this game was going on, it was a pretty boring game, of course. What you really saw on the field there, so what I told you in the summertime, we just don't have the horses. And certainly the roster is in a lot worse spot than it was in the summertime after the trades and all the injuries. But you saw a gated community club, the Buffalo Bills, and the ghetto club, the Jets. We're living in a trailer in the ghetto part of the NFL neighborhood, and one team, pure class. Now, I will say, people forget that the Buffalo Bills, prior to Tyrod Taylor and Sean McDermott and old Mr. Bean over there, they call him Mick Bean, prior to them arriving, they had a 17-year playoff drought. People just conveniently forget this. We're only at, 14, 15, 16? I mean, we got a ways to go to even match Buffalo. And then Tyrod got him out of it, and then they drafted Josh Allen, and off they went. And now they're in the gated community. So it can be done with the right quarterback, but and the right people on the team, in terms of talent. So nothing much to say about the game. Quentin Skinner got a catch. He's on the rise. He's going to be on the 90-man in training camp. Quentin Skinner. Maybe he could be something. He had his first NFL catch today. Hooray! There's really nothing else to say here other than I told you that Brady Cook would look like this. This is what he is. He's a UDFA. He needed a red shirt, and then you hope that maybe he could become a QB3, QB2 type. But instead, we pressed him into action, and this is what happens. So not really much to talk about game-wise. So what I was thinking during the game is I made a list. A list of what, Frankie? Players that we should sign to $1.5 to $2 million contracts, 1-year contracts, maybe 2-year. Jasir Taylor, Andrew Beck, Max Mitchell, Kene Nwangu, Kalen Saunders, Stone Smart, Khalil Herbert, Michael Walker. All those people are pending free agents. They will sign any contract you put in front of them. So let's get them signed. 1 million, 1.5 million, 2 million. That is a good way to fortify the back end of the roster, get that solidified. And then when we go into free agency, um, we're going to have to make some big acquisitions there. We're going to have to spend a lot of capital. We're going to overpay. We are. That's true. People are going to be laughing and saying, "You paid what? For who?" That's an overpay. Yes, we're happy to pay it. It's Woody's money. We don't give a fuck. We need talent on this team. We need a big, big upgrade in talent. And then comes the draft. The other great thing about having the second overall pick, every single round we'll be picking second. So our second round pick is the second in that draft, and the fourth, and so on and so forth. So those 4 players that we're going to take if we don't make a trade, we're going to have 2 in the first round, 2 in the second round. Those 4 have to be impact players right away. Then with a big free agent haul, and then the big question, of course, the quarterback position. So, and what it looks like now is this pick from Indianapolis is moving on up. So Indianapolis basically lost 7 in a row. Unbelievably for them, they were, sitting pretty, and now they're 8-9. So the pick that was when we acquired it, 32nd in the first round. Remember, when we acquired it, they had the best record in the league, and they put that tentatively last in the draft. Now it's up to 15, and it could slide back to 16. We're rooting tonight for Baltimore for many reasons, but if Baltimore wins, that makes Pittsburgh 9-8, and Pittsburgh's out. Baltimore goes to 9-8, and they're in, so that would kick Aaron Rodgers out of the playoffs. And meanwhile, solidify that second pick as the 15th pick. I don't think it can move up. It certainly cannot move up anymore unless there's some other weird shenanigans. But it seems like long as Baltimore winds up 9-8, then our second pick is now 15th overall. So what a value that is. And so I think that pick, just looking at who could be available, like that pick is almost certainly a guy like Denzel Boston, for example. We got to get this wide receiver room top notch for whoever the quarterback is. Then the 2 second rounders are going to be defense, and it just depends what we want to do with this second overall pick here, whether that's, depends on more comes out or not, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So that's where we are. We're looking at Tankathon. We're into the off season. Tomorrow's Black Monday. Root tonight for Baltimore. That's going to be a fun game anyway. Any way you look at it. Arizona 3, and they already have them at 3-14. That game's not. Oh, it is a final. Okay. The only other game going on right now. So Washington beat Philadelphia. Some of these teams are knocking themselves down. Let's see. Washington got a 5th win. No, 4. I guess this isn't updated. I think that's their 5th win. So the Giants, it looks like, are going to pick 5th. There's probably a ton of people looking at Tankathon website right now that they're having a hard time with the traffic, probably. All the losing teams. So, overall, if you think about it, we had before all of this, before the finalized rankings here, we had the most capital going into the offseason, and that all just improved by losing. It sucks that that's the way it is, but all of those draft picks now for every one of ours moved up. And also our second round pick from Dallas looks like they're going to finish 12th worst. Washington bumped all the way down to 7. So the Giants firmly in place at 5. So, yeah, it's now final. Vegas, Jets, Cardinals, Titans, Titans, Giants. That Giants pick is almost certainly going to be a wide receiver. That Cleveland pick now is almost certainly going to be a wide receiver. So your top 2 are off the board. So there goes Tyson and Taters. So and maybe Denzel Boston goes before we can get him at 15. We're at 15 right now. It could slip to 16, but that's as far down as it's going to go. So that's why I think that's probably Denzel Boston. But there's other receivers you could take there too if he's gone. But so that's finalized now. And so with Dallas being 12th here, that means our second round pick is 12th in that round, which is pretty high. So those are going to be two defenders. We should be able to get two good defensive players there. So not too shabby in terms of what Muji did in terms of the roster, knowing that we had to improve this roster greatly while getting younger and getting, taking care of the cap and all of that. So that's where we are. And, the content on this channel moving forward is going to be all about what do we do in next year. We'll see what happens tomorrow, the big day. Next big day on the calendar is Black Monday. Who gets fired? Who stays? Who goes? What's the news? Etc., etc. Let's just do a final check before we go off the air this final Sunday of the 2025-2026 season. Let's see what some of these writers are talking about, if there's any late-breaking news. People are talking about the draft orientation. Ian Rappaport, the Jets officially have the number 2 overall pick, which could allow them to take a quarterback of the future or pull off another blockbuster trade, Ian Rappaport says. They also have number 1 pick of the second round. Have the number 1 pick of the second round? What? How do we have the number 1 pick of the second round? I don't know that that's right. How would we have the number 1 pick of the second round? Shouldn't that be the Raiders? So I'm not sure what he's talking about there. So yeah, the guarantees. Let's see what the Jet people are talking about, in case there's anything surprising that we would need to know that happened since the game ended. Aaron Glenn, trust me and have faith. Expresses confidence in his ability to get it fixed. Aaron Glenn, I let the players down, I let the organization down, and that burns me. He takes the entire season on himself, a defiant Glenn in his presser. Aaron Glenn, this season is on me. Well, he's taking accountability. That's something. But the fact of the matter is they didn't have the quarterback gamble came up snake eyes, 1. And 2, as I told you in the summertime, they didn't acquire enough good players on defense. And then in the middle of the season, we traded our best 2 defenders. What do you expect? I mean, I'm glad that Glenn's taking accountability, but who knows? So they're talking about Connor Hughes is talking about Brian Daboll going to the Raiders as offensive coordinator. He says that this is interesting. Connor Hughes says if Brian Daboll goes to the Raiders as OC, everyone's saying Daboll's going to be an OC in the league. It's somewhere. He says, I wonder if that increases the possibility of Dante Moore going 1, assuming he declares. His play style fits him more than Mendoza. So the reason he's saying that is because Daboll had Josh Allen in Buffalo, and everybody attributes Josh Allen's rise to Brian Daboll, which is a myth, of course. Josh Allen fixed his mechanics in the offseason on his own by going to basically a throwing school or a mechanics place. Nobody from the Bills was involved. And then once he got that squared away in terms of accuracy, well, you see what he has become. That was the only problem that he had. However, Daboll got to basically become a head coach because of that, and everyone thinks he's an offensive genius because of that. And so now Daboll was here and he had Daniel Jones, and they thought, okay, well, Daniel Jones is basically Josh Allen Jr. This is going to work. It didn't. Then they drafted Jackson Dart, and they said, okay, well, Jackson Dart is like Josh Allen Jr. And then he ran around and did some good things, but kept getting injured and all of this, concussions, and then Daboll got fired. So that's why he's saying that, because Dante Moore is more athletic than Mendoza. Now, Mendoza is more athletic than people give him credit for, but Dante Moore is the better athlete. So that's what he's talking about. And that is going to be the situation. Here's what Connor Hughes is not saying. Exclusive information from Frankie from Flatbush, right from my brain. Here's another thing that you would want to do if you're the Raiders. Okay, in my opinion. Now, the difference between these two players, Moore and Mendoza, is Moore has a higher ceiling. Mendoza has the higher floor. I think Mendoza has a very good ceiling, but Moore has a higher ceiling. Why do I say that? Dante Moore is 20 years old, 20. Very, very young. And so if you're going to draft Dante Moore, you would want to draft him to a place where if you need to, you can sit him down for a number of games, just like the Giants did with Dart. And again, this works if Daboll is the Raiders OC and he wants to do the same plan he did with the Giants, which was a good plan in my opinion. You run it back with Geno. You got him there. And you bring in Moore, and whenever Moore is ready, game 1, game 5, game 12, whatever it is, then he goes. You don't need him to be the number one, and you don't rush him, understanding he's very young. He has a very high ceiling. Let him get acclimated, and however many games that is, it's determined by Moore's, the same way they did it with Dart. Whenever he's ready, you go in. You don't just force it and say, God, go ahead. Like, no. This kid's 20 years old. So, that's an interesting thought. And and the Raiders may think that regardless of whether Daboll's there or not. Teams are going to wrestle with, between these two guys, we have to assume that Moore's going into the draft. If he doesn't go into the draft, then the Raiders are probably taking Mendoza, and that's it for us with Mendoza. But, we'd have to trade them a fortune and just to go up one spot, and not sure. We'll have to see. But the Raiders, no matter who they have as OC, the teams are going to be wrestling with the ceiling of Moore versus the floor of Mendoza. This is what you're going to hear all offseason. Frankie exclusive. This is why you should subscribe to this channel and be a member of this channel. Click the join button down below. So that's where we are. And then people are talking about the interceptions. We didn't get one this year. We set a record. Yay, a whole season without a pick. Well, the reason we did that is because we neglected the defensive line. As I told you in the summer, when you neglect the defensive line and you have a 4-3, you're asking to be punched in the face is what you're asking. And that's what we did. You can't get turnovers in a 4-3 with a terrible defensive line not pressuring the quarterback. You get picks when you pressure the quarterback and make him do things he doesn't want to do because he's being pressured, you see. And nobody's talking about that. So the Jets allowed 503 points this season. Franchise worst is 504 in 2021 with Robert Saleh. So, all right, doesn't seem to be any news. Yeah, one of the worst defensive performances of any team of all time. There's no way to sugarcoat it, but it's because they didn't acquire enough good players. So I hope that'll convince you that I know what I'm talking about when it comes to analyzing what we do this offseason. I proved it out. I don't say these things because I'm pounding my chest. I say them because I'm trying to convince you that there's a differentiation here on this channel on FSPN and that I kind of know what I'm talking about. And so when we start acquiring players and this process starts again, and the first thing we're going to have to determine who's the DC. If we bring in a guy like Beefalo or Wink, that's going to be a 3-4, and it's going to be a whole different conversation. But that's the point, is that when I tell you, and people were arguing with me, when I tell you we have the least amount of talent of any team in the AFC East, we're coming in last, and you wanted to argue with me, well, look what happened. So, I hope you will subscribe. I hope you will give it a thumbs up on this video, and I hope you will join the Inner Circle. We got a $2 membership. We got a $5 membership. We got a $10 membership. Whatever fits your budget, however you want to support FSPN, I hope you will see a differentiation in the content that we provide on this channel as opposed to all those other bummy channels out there. All right, well, final Sunday of the year, final rapid reaction of the year. Frankie from Flatbush signing off. Until next time, so long.